Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to be doing something a bit more fun. We're going to do a tier list of Command & Conquer Red Alert 3 plus Red Alert 3 Uprising. This is just personal opinion. I never played this game competitively. I've recently been playing the game just in some skirmish stuff and a bit of campaign, just to kind of remind myself what units are what I like, what I don't like, and just kind of go from there. This is going to just be based on each individual unit versus each individual unit. I will say that this game, if you group a lot of units together, they can be kind of good, but every unit has like a secondary ability in this game, so that can kind of come into as a factor as well. And we're going to go from there. And whoever's put this together has nicely done it by team. So we're going to be starting with the Allies, then be doing the Soviets, and then finally be doing the Rising Sun at the end. Okay, so we've got S to D. S being like the absolute best units in the game, probably what you want to build every time or whatever, and D being like not very good. And having replayed the game just recently, like there's a couple of units here which kind of was like, don't know how I feel about them so much now, but yeah, we'll go from there. Now, question is, do we do it in order, or do we do it in what I think? Let's mix and match it up, shall we? Let's go for different stuff. Let's start with the conscript. Easily a D tier unit. Conscript, very, very cheap, is good anti-infantry, and it has a good building clear. But what I learned in this is that a lot of infantry in this game die very quick to other anti-infantry things. So if you've got a Riptide, Pacifier, there's certain other units, the Sickles, stuff that's very anti-infantry, they die very quickly. I think out of the 3 units, the conscript, the fact that it's cheap is the best thing about it. You can get a lot of conscripts, but if you've got peacekeepers, if you've got the I can't actually remember the name of the soldiers with the swords, but if you've got them, they are essentially slightly better in my opinion. So I think we'll start with the conscript being at one of the worst units in the game. On that note, let's go with the samurai soldiers. I don't think they're much better. I think the best thing about the samurai guys is that they do have the sword that allows them to close the gap. So if you've got a decent amount of them, you can charge a few of them in. But I do think they're also kind of a D tier. They are more expensive than this conscript. I think they're slightly better. But they do definitely die just fairly quickly. I honestly will use a lot of these basic infantry units, but I think they're just there at the start of the game. They're good to have. They're good to garrison buildings, things like that. It's good to have your basic infantry. But when you start getting to more advanced stuff, you kind of don't need them. You only really need them if you want to mix an army together with a bit of anti-infantry and a bit of anti-tank. Which then brings me on to the Peacekeeper. I think the Peacekeeper, I still really like this unit. I think it's better than these two. The one thing with the Peacekeeper is it's a bit more expensive, and it also has a slightly shorter range because it's using a shotgun. So I think the game works that the closer you get, that it will do more damage. The thing that makes the Peacekeeper so much better than the other two is its secondary ability. Brings up a shield. Yes, they move slower, but you can close the gap, and you can use them as just a meat shield or just to absorb damage. So I think they are a little bit better. I think they're out of the 3 infantry units. They can all clear buildings as well. Peacekeeper, I think you have to go just click on a building and they'll just run in there. The conscripts, you use the fire bombs or the molotovs, and then I think with the, I wish I could remember what they were called. The guys with the basic guns, I think you have to put them into sword mode. They run into the building and clear it like that. So we'll go from there. But yeah, I do think the Peacekeeper is slightly better than the other two, but I have found that they are all fairly weak. Right, Javelin Soldier. Javelin Soldier is an interesting one. I think the Javelin Soldier is good, and I think they're a very good anti-vehicle. Its secondary ability, lock-on, can be good, but I don't know if I necessarily think it's great. If you've got a good amount of these, they will put out some serious damage, but they die pretty quickly as well. I actually think they're in C tier along with the Peacekeepers. I think that for the Allies, if you're building like 10 at a time, they will rinse so much stuff, but they don't have a lot of health. And I don't know if their secondary ability is worth it a lot of the time. You're better off having more of them and never using their secondary ability than having a few and using it. I just don't think it's worth it. It does lock on, but it takes like 2 to 3 seconds to lock on. Then it will just pump out damage. Does more damage, but I'm not sure it's worth it. However, a unit that I do think is better than than it is the flak guy. Now the flak cannon, same principle, anti-air, anti-tank. Secondary ability is to chuck mines on things, which is actually kind of cool. You can like run up to vehicles and chuck mines. I do think it's a better unit. I think it's... Is it a C tier unit? They still die pretty easily, but they are pretty good. I might have to come back to him because they are decent. They do put out a lot of damage. All three of them, the other one's the Tank Buster. All three of them put out some serious damage on the things that they're good against, but they do die very quickly. That's the only downside to it. So, like, talking about Tank Buster, I think the Tank Buster's damage output is great. I think the Tank Buster is very, very good. I don't think out of the three of them. So the biggest problem with the Tank Buster is it can't attack air. It's very good at destroying buildings. It's very good at taking out tanks and things like that, but it can't attack air, which is a problem where these two can, and you can just have a very cheap anti-air defense with both of these, and they're fairly effective against it as well. So I think out of the three of them, it's probably the weakest. I think the Flak Trooper is the best one because of its secondary ability. The Tank Busters can dip into the hole to avoid being crushed, which is kind of cool, but it's not... it's one of those abilities that's like, it's cool, but you know, you're doing it to like reduce damage, not get crushed, but I think people would just walk away. I think you can like jump up fire, jump back down kind of thing, but I don't really rate it. I mean, its damage output is what makes it so good. But not being able to attack air is its biggest weakness. Javelin guys, very effective because they attack air, but I think the Flak Trooper's secondary ability puts it above the others. I think the fact you can run up to a tank and just chuck a mine on it is actually kind of useful. If you're about to get crushed, you can just switch over, bomb, sticks a mine on it, blows it up, that kind of thing. Alright, Engineers. Now, Engineers can be some of the most powerful units in the game because they can capture stuff, and that's never a bad thing. For the sake of what... I'm just going to probably put the Engineers in C tier, because a single Engineer can't really do much on its own. The weakest Engineer of the three, in my opinion, is the Rising Sun Engineer, and that's because its secondary ability is just to make the guy sprint. So yes, you will get somewhere quicker, but he has to stop and take a breath. Which the other two are better, because the Soviet one, he can build a bunker. So you can stick a bunker down, you get an extra defense. That's actually really useful. So for that. And then the Allies one, which I think is the best one, builds a health tent and it can heal units. To be honest, the Allies one and the Soviet one like are kind of on par. I only put it above it because I think being able to build a health tent to re-heal your soldiers is infinitely better. But, I say infinitely better, that's not fair. It just edges it out better. But the Engineer for the Soviets being able to build a bunker sort of wherever you want, that's pretty useful too. You can just pop your units into it. I don't know if I put these units specifically. Like, you could put them in S tier, because again, they can just capture an MCV and it's like, game over, mate. But I think, you know, if you were going based on what these units do in a fighting capacity, then they're better than... In some instances, they probably are better than these units down here. That's why they're in C. But they're not something that you're going to just use all the time. Like, they're good for strategies. They work well with certain strategies, but other than that, you're probably not going to use them. Okie dokie, what else we got? Oh, okay, the attack dog, and where's the bear? Where are you, Mr. Bear? Bear. As scout units, I think they're pretty good, and they can wreak havoc, but they also die in like 1 or 2 shots. When I was playing it earlier, I had a couple of dogs, and they died so fast. Same with the bears. I think they are a cool unit. I think they are really interesting ideas, but I just think they are... Unless you want to scout, which is useful, I just don't even know if I would bother building these. I think I'd rather just like have more like peacekeepers or conscripts or something over these animals. Like, I just don't think they're particularly great. I think that they can be useful. I think they can... If I'm sort of basing this off of the individual unit, obviously if you're building an army, you're going to have a mix of things, and obviously abilities help. So like running the dog or the bear in and they like stun everything, that is really good. But based on the fact that we're sort of looking at each individual unit, I think that they are just... They're there and they're good to scout, but I just don't know if I would use more than that. The AI seems to build a lot of them. It's also the same with these dragonflies, but I do think the dragonfly is slightly better than the dogs, because a dragonfly is cheap. You can put it on an enemy vehicle and it will slow that vehicle down. You can then detonate it to do some damage. I think in that sense it's just a little bit more effective. They die pretty quickly. You can attack them and stuff like that, so they're not like the be or end all. They probably wouldn't be higher than that, but I think the bear and the dog are on the same level. That's the way I've ordered it, but they are the same. They're not great. Alright, what else have we got that we can do? Let's have a look. Let's go. I'm trying to sort of work our way up to the crazy stuff, really. Oh, we've got MCVs. Okay, so let's put the MC. Where's the MCVs for these guys? Because yes, they are a unit. No, I'm not going to rate the MCVs over the other stuff. So that just seems silly. Let's just get the infantry out of the way, maybe then. That's probably the best thing to do before moving on. Spy. I don't know how to feel about the spy, because it's a non-combatant. I mean, obviously the spy can infiltrate buildings and gain advantages. Like, you can pay off units, so maybe having a spy is pretty good. But would I put it in B tier? That's the question. Like, I like spies. They are annoying, and you get plenty of units in this game. And the other thing I should say is a lot of units in this game are purposely broken, and we'll see that. The spy, I think, is... I think the spy is good for what it does. It lets you infiltrate enemy buildings. Like, you can power things down and stuff like that. But its secondary ability that lets you buy off men, like, around them, that's probably the best thing about it. I don't know if there's much there probably is a strategy around using these. I think they are a good support unit. I think you can do some really good plays if you can get a couple spies in the right places. I don't know if I would put it much higher than that. Similar to the Shinobi, actually. Shinobi can go invisible to get away from enemies, and it can also, like, lock down your factories. You can do certain things with it, so they kind of work similar-ish. They are annoying. I mean, the Shinobi can attack, so actually the Shinobi is probably slightly better because it can attack infantry. It's like, I think it's got throwing stars and a sword, so you can do that with it. But again, I don't know if they're like... They die pretty quickly once they're found out. If you've got something that can detect stealth, they're not going to last very long. Especially the spy being unarmed. Yeah, they're all right. They're all right. I think there are places to be used for them, but I don't know if I would say they're particularly great beyond that. What have we got? We got. Where's the bike? All right, the bike. This is probably a B tier unit. So this comes out of a barracks. And this unit's interesting because it's fast, so it's like for a scout unit, it's fairly decent. It chucks Molotov cocktails like the conscript, except they come out quicker. They obviously can move quicker. They don't have the most amount of health, but you can also then turn it into it has a mortar on it. It becomes a mid to long range artillery unit. Now, I don't know if I necessarily think the artillery part of it's great. It's very annoying to deal with because they're always just out of range. You got to attack them, they're just out of range. I think the unit's very solid. I think it's almost better as a hit and run unit than anything else, which is probably what it's designed for. So you have the whole idea of just chucking Molotovs at enemy units. You can, as long as you move towards them, you can avoid most of their attacks because they come out, even though they come out quick, they just have an arc that they have to fly and hit the ground. But I do think a good number of these, you can like unpack them, fire at a building, and then run away. They're like like I said, they're a very good hit and run building. There are better artillery units in the game, but for the cost price, the fact it comes out of a barracks, I quite like it. I think it's a decent unit. I think it is definitely better than a lot of this stuff. But in the expansions, you get one of the expansion units. I think this was a good addition to the Soviets. I think it's actually pretty good. So, ooh, Tesla Trooper. Tesla Troopers are decent health. I don't think they can be run over by every unit. They have a stun wave, which is their secondary ability that knocks out vehicles around them, as well as the actual unit. And they are good against vehicles and people. I'm going to put him in A for now. I might move him up, because I think the Tesla Trooper is one of the best infantry units in the game. They are fairly expensive. They hit really hard, but they are they're just good against everything except air. They can't be, they can't shoot up, but you can knock vehicles out very easily with them. It's one thing the Soviets are very good at, is just stunning vehicles. It's actually kind of annoying. I think that they are easily one of the better units in the game. If you've got a big army of these coming, you don't want to intercept that, because if you send your vehicles in, they get fried. if you send your infantry in, they get fried. And I believe they can power up Tesla coils, make them better, and also power them up when they're not, if there's no power, if you've got enough of them. So, very, very, very good unit. Very good unit. Right. Is there any more infantry? Ooh, yeah, Archer Maiden, where are you? Archer Maiden. One of the better... Ooh, probably there, actually. One of the better infantry units for the Rising Sun. Anti-air, because we didn't have it before. This was added in Uprising as well. Anti-air. Has a area effect ability and is good against vehicles and people. Slow rate of fire. But I think in numbers, they're actually really good. I think they're a really cool designed unit. They do probably like die fairly easily, but because they're anti-infantry and sort of anti-vehicle and anti-air, that kind of gives them an advantage over some of this other stuff. Like if someone runs up to you with a bunch of like conscripts and all you've got is Archer Maidens, well, one, if you just fire it into the sky and do some area effect damage, or you're going to kill off most of them in one shot because that's how good these units are. Very solid choice, really cool unit. Biggest weakness is its rate of fire. But it can attack air, it can attack vehicles, it can attack infantry, and I think that goes a long way. When you have the ability to shoot at everything, that's a powerful tool. Right, we've got Desolator, and yes, and the Rocket Maidens. Alright, let's Desolator. Desolator is an interesting unit, because it's primarily used for anti-infantry, toxic. What it destroys most infantry. It's better. It's one of the best anti-infantry units in the game. And then its second ability is a corrosive blob that allows them to attack buildings and also vehicles. I think this is another A unit. I think the biggest weakness of this thing is it's slow. It's got a decent amount of health, but the damage output just with 5 of these units alone is actually insane. Like, if you see Desolators, you've got to get on top of them quickly. You need to take them out, either take them out of ranged units, or get on top of them quickly. If they get in range of your base, your buildings will not last 30 seconds. They are crazy, and they do crazy damage, and they are such a cool unit. You just have one set to firing the globules at things to take out the buildings. The other's just spraying stuff, and you know, one firing the glob, and the other's doing the spraying. You're going to be doing a lot of damage, and the fact that they can be good, so they're good against all infantry, they will wreck everything, but the fact that they can then be good against vehicles and buildings is insane. It's like the blob basically marks it to take that type of damage. It's ridiculous. Honestly, one of the best infantry units. Rocket Maiden. I like Rocket Maidens. If ever I'm playing the Rising Sun, I would like to get Rocket Maidens. They have the ability to tether people to the ground. I think it's the secondary ability. I don't know if it stops them firing, but it stops a unit in its tracks so it can't move. I think they're pretty good, to be honest. I think Rocket Maidens, because it flies, so it's in the air, and it can attack ground and air. I think it can attack air, because I normally use them to get just to fire down. So, but I think they can attack both. I think they're a really solid choice. They're not the hardest thing to kill. We put them in B. But I think they're a really good choice of unit. I think a good mass of Rocket Maidens with like 1 or 2 with the secondary ability on to like stun them. They can do crazy amounts of damage. They can hit pretty much anything. If you've got the rocket upgrade, which I'm not really factoring in, but like each faction has those upgrades, I think Rocket Maidens can do some crazy damage. But again, we're looking at this in small numbers rather than large numbers. Any of these units in like large numbers can be insane. But yeah, very, very good unit. Great against most things. Good hit and run unit as well. Right, what have we got left? The Heroes and Cryo Legionnaires. I think people might disagree on this. But I think the Cryo Legionnaire might be the first S tier unit in the game that we're putting in here. Now, in Red Alert 2 you had the Chrono Legionnaire, and they were just insane. They're just one of the most insane units in the entire game. But in this game, it's all about ice. Now, the only thing that makes these guys difficult, well, they're expensive to get, and what makes them difficult is the fact that they freeze everything, and you have to use their secondary ability to jump or use other units to shoot stuff. But the reason why they are so good is that if they're all firing at one unit or one building, and they quickly ice up a unit, It takes one shot from anything else and it's dead. So either you jump one of these guys on there and it'll kill it, or you have a set another couple of units with you. I think they're insane. Like, they can't shoot up. They can run on water as well, which is like nuts. So they're amphibious. But if you've got a good amount of them and they just spray an area in ice, you can freeze armies, you can freeze certain defenses, buildings. And because the ice units and buildings then take 1 damage, you can run up a bunch to an MCV, 5 of them. In about 10 seconds, the MCV is frozen. You just shoot it once and it's dead. And I think that's just insane. I don't think they're, like, maybe they're balanced, but they're not. Their biggest thing is that they're expensive. So if you're building these, you're not building much else. They have a fairly decent amount of health as well, so they don't die particularly quickly. But in terms of just like crazy output, like, they are nuts. I do think like this and the Desolator, I think, are by far the best infantry units in the game. But they are some of the more expensive ones, and that's kind of what some of this comes down to, is price as well. But I don't want to factor that too much in, because depending on how you're playing, you might have a lot of money, so price isn't going to matter. Right, I think that's all the infantry except for their hero units. So we'll do the hero units next. Tanya, the classic, the staple of the allies. Probably... So my issue with the hero units in this game is they do die fairly easily. Tanya pumps out a ton of damage very quickly against infantry, and then can obviously tag buildings and one-shot them that way. Sort of a medium range one. I think Tanya is B tier. I think she's a good unit. I don't think the heroes are actually stupidly good in this game, because if you've got enough anti-vehicle and you catch one of them out, you're going to kill them very quickly, as I discovered. Tanya's ability allows her to rewind time though, so she can get her health back. That's quite kind of cool. But I think that if you're running up against, I don't know, let's say some pacifiers, or, you know, something that's anti or a sickle, you're going to get murdered very quickly, and that applies to all 3 of them. However, I do think Rumiko, I can't remember how to pronounce her name, she's better. I think she's she grabs a unit, tosses it into the air, completely immobilizes it. Very, very powerful. Secondary ability, boof, sends out a wave, knocks everything back. However, I do think Natasha is the best one of the 3. And the reason for that is, has a sniper rifle, stupidly long range, so pops off infantry. Slightly slower rate of fire, but secondly, can, when tagging buildings or tagging vehicles, causing a Badger bomber, one-shots it basically. And then her secondary ability is shoot the driver out of a vehicle, and then you can take it. I do think in that order, that's probably how good they are. I find fighting against them annoying, but again, if you've got enough, none of them can shoot up other than Yumiko, I can't remember what her name is. She can attack air, I'm pretty sure. Tanya can't, but she can mow down infantry like quicker, and then has the ability to teleport out. She has the ability to do a blast wave, and then Natasha I just think is the best out of the 3. So it's weird, like they're not really made equal. They're kind of good at slightly different things, but I don't also think they're like A or S tier. I think, honestly, they're quite easy to kill, and a lot of the time, I mean, if you're not paying attention, I mean, they show up on the map as a skull, so it's fairly easy to spot them and deal with them. But if you've got anything with longer range than them and it's anti-infantry, you'll probably kill them pretty quickly. So, oh yeah, we've got the Sputnik there, along with a harvester. We don't need those. Right, let's have a look. Let's just start grabbing units in and having a little gander. That's another harvester. We don't need you. So let's do the battle tanks. The battle tanks are these guys. So where is it? Tsunami tank. This thing is okay. I think out of the 3 battle tanks, yes, it can go on water. It has the ability to absorb more damage, but it's not that great. I think out of the 3 battle tanks, this is by far the worst one. I just don't find it particularly great. I think I would rather, like, I will still build them because they're a decent price. They can go on water, but some of these other units here are going to do a lot more for your armies than this thing. The Rising Sun has a lot better units than this. I think it's kind of just very, like, average. In fact, is it even... Put it at the top of... let's do that. Let's put it at the top of C. I just don't... like, for a main battle tank, it's meant to be this compact thing. I just don't think it's that good. compared to the other two. If we grab the Guardian tank for me, A tier unit. Now, the reason why I think this unit is as solid as it is, because you can build these things, you can have one or two of them tagged to its secondary ability, which is a target painter, which then increases all damage that unit takes. If you've got a couple of them tagged like that, if you've got 10 tanks of these, and you just roll up to someone's base, one, you're going to do a ton of damage to the base, you're going to do a ton of damage to the other armored units. Biggest weakness is infantry and stuff like that, which you could run over. But I think that you're going to have a fairly good time of it. They're just a really good unit in the game, and they just do a ton of damage, and they're sort of a reasonable price. There are, again, better vehicles, but I do think that this one, specifically having that target painter ability, is pretty great. Where is the hammer tank? Where are you, hammer tank? There it is. Hammer tank is probably the best one of the three, based on the fact that its secondary ability lets it siphon weapons and armor from different things. I do believe the actual tank hits harder as well. But as a vehicle, it does some really cool abilities. If you can siphon off an extra gun, you suddenly get more output, more armor, makes it harder to kill. It's just an all-round good choice. Again, if I'm playing Soviets, to be honest, that's the thing I'm probably going to build the most. Just get a big old army of hammer tanks and off I trot. Even if I don't use the secondary ability, I do think these are the two best, the two of the best units in the game, in the sense that you just want to build these pretty much every game. I think they're just a solid choice. Unlike the tsunami tank, which I just don't think is close to being nearly as good as those. What have we got going forward? Let's get the dolphin out of the way. Don't really rate the dolphin. It's probably better than these units. Oops. Dolphin's okay. It's good against ships. It can jump out of the water, but to be honest, there are better allied things you can build. They are cheap though, so you can get a few of them to help defend, but I just don't find them particularly great. Out of all the animals, they're probably the best one. But yeah, it's just one of those units. It's like a cheap thing that gets around fast. It's like a scout thing with a sonar gun on it. And then, like I said, you can jump out of the water to avoid attacks, which is kind of cool. They're annoying, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily great to use. So it's probably where I'd put them down there. Not something I just don't build them, really. So not a unit that I particularly find that fun. What else? What other ones can we get rid of? Mini Yari sub, probably better than the dolphin. Don't really rate. Yes, you can run it into a bunch of stuff, and its secondary ability is to run in and blow itself up. Again, cheap, can get quite a few of them. Not that great though. Only good against ships. Can be annoying. If somebody sends a load over and you've got big battleships and stuff, they're probably going to mess you up unless you've got a dolphin or something else to deal with them. If you're the Soviets, you probably use the Akula sub, because that thing just hits like a truck. But yeah, they're more annoying, kind of that sort of fast, does little bits of clinks away at doing damage rather than doing actual damage, and its secondary ability suicides the unit which does some damage, but then you have to go and build more of them. So for that, I just don't think it's particularly great. However, I would still build a couple if I was playing the Rising Sun, just so that you've got something to defend the bigger ships. But yeah, not something that I particularly think is great. The Apollo fighter and the MiG. Where's the MiG? There's no difference with these units in the sense that they basically have one role, and that one role is to shoot down aircraft. I think both of them are very good at what they do. And I think it's worth having 4 of them on hand, because you can set them up in an area where and they will just smash things down. The MiG does missiles, and the Apollo fighter shoots like a machine gun. And then their secondary ability just returns them to base instantly, and they go heal up and refuel. They are a solid choice of anti-air. They are very good at one thing and one thing only. And if you are playing against an opponent that has a lot of aircraft or whatever, these things are going to shred them. 4 alone will do a fairly decent job of taking out most things, but any more than that, you're going to have air superiority. It's just something that's going to stop the enemy from attacking you, because they just do so much damage. On their own though, they are a little bit unguarded because they can't shoot ground, so if you've got something that shoots up, they're going to get wrecked. But to be honest, they are a solid choice, and for anti-air. The equivalent of that for the Rising Sun would be the Mecha Tengu. The Mecha Tengu is weird because it does act like this when it's in flight mode. So it can be ground mode, flight mode. It's anti-infantry on the ground. They're actually pretty good at that. In flight mode, it's like anti-air. You can only shoot things. However, if you one-on-one a MiG or a Apollo fighter with this, it will die. It's not as strong, simply because it has that option to be in the air or on the ground. So I like the Mecha Tengu if I'm comparing to this. If I'm doing it as a ground unit, I think it's actually pretty good. But I do think that compared to the other fighters for air superiority, it sucks. They are cheaper to get, and you can build an infinite amount of them, so potentially you're going to have a lot more of them. But the MiG and the Apollo fighter will blow them up pretty quickly. So you do need, like, if they've got 4, you probably need like 10, like in equivalent to it, assuming that they fire out, spread the damage out well. If you know how to micro fairly decently, you can probably do alright. But as an anti-infantry unit, it's actually pretty great. It's actually similar to the Sickle, which again is probably a B tier unit. I think the Sickle is pretty cool. The fact that it has this jump on infantry, can jump up and over things, and it's got like 4 guns on it. I think it can fire in multiple different directions. It's a really solid anti-infantry choice. Like, it's okay against lighter vehicles, but I wouldn't build it to like for that. I would pair it up with something that's anti-tank. They move fairly decently. They can get around fairly alright. I don't think they're as good as the units that are in A tier. I'm just looking at this stuff actually. Like, so these guys are still very, very powerful. Followed up by the Rocket Mania. I think this stuff, this seems about right. I wouldn't put a Sickle over these because these guys would wreck it. The Sickle would probably destroy Tanya pretty quickly, but the other two would probably wreck it fairly quickly. But I just think it's a good, solid choice. It's a good, solid choice for an anti-infantry unit, and I would definitely wouldn't put it worse than that for sure. All right, what else? Terror Drone. This is another. So the Terror Drone is kind of a weird one. It has a secondary ability that allows it to stun vehicles, which is powerful. But its main purpose is to get inside a vehicle, break it from the inside, go into the next vehicle. The problem is they die really easily. Just for the fact that it is that annoying, because it is an annoying unit, and it's a unit you do not send at the enemy army. You send it in the back lines to jump inside their prospectors or in their harvesters or stuff that's coming out of the vehicle bay, and just jump on it, or ships or stuff like that. However, I think it dies in like 2 shots, 1 shot by a lot of things. If you know it's coming and your attack moving, you will just blow it up. Again, it can kill people and that, but it is better than a lot of these units. I think it's good to have 1 or 2. I think there's an ability with the Soviets that like breaks open their vehicle when they come out. But it's so weak, and if anyone's paying attention, it won't get anything done. So, not the best, I would say. All right. What next? Let's have a look at the multi-gunner IFV. This thing is a very powerful unit in the sense that it can be anti-infantry, anti-tank, anti-aircraft. You put an engineer, it becomes a repair thing. So you put a peacekeeper in there, it gets 2 shotguns, becomes anti-tank. Put a javelin in there, it becomes more effective with its anti-vehicle and anti-air. I'm not sure what happens when you put like a spy in there or Tanya in there, but like it adapts to whatever you put in there, and I think that has a lot of usefulness. If you want armored anti-vehicle and anti-air, shove loads of javelin soldiers in there, and they become very good at that sort of stuff. Or like I said, you roll around with peacekeepers in it, and they become very anti-infantry. Because his normal gun's kind of okay, but you definitely want to put something in there to deal with it. And then, like I said, you put an engineer, and they can now heal and repair stuff. I think that's a really, really cool unit. It's probably better than those two because it's so versatile. It's a very versatile unit. You can do a lot of it if you understand how it works, and they're not that expensive. I think they're $900 in the game, which is like, is it $900? It might be cheaper than that. Like, they're not as expensive as the main tank, so you can get more of them. The only downside is they are fairly weak, so they will die fairly quickly. But I think it's and they're fast, so you can scout with them, you can run around, you can do hit and run tactics. They're a very fast unit. I'll move you over there. But they are good. Definitely worth it. On the other sort of side of that, of the multi-gunner, is also the Riptide. The Riptide is built out of the factory and also the port. And the thing with the Riptide is that it has 2 missiles on the bottom, so when it's in the sea it can attack boats and attack buildings. And they're actually quite powerful. But its main thing is a troop transport, and it also has an anti-infantry gun on it. As a troop transport, it's fairly fast. It's a really solid unit. I think you can do a lot with it. I think they're good anti-infantry. The fact that it's amphibious and can get around, and you can put people in it and then depart them on the ground is super good. I think they are a really solid choice. I don't know if I put it in A. Maybe I would. Maybe I would put it in A. I think that they are just a good unit for the fact that it has so much versatility. You can use them as like the battle submarines, the battleships, or you can get troops in it, run to the enemy base, unload the troops, and also it's anti-infantry. So I think they're pretty good for that. So yeah, definitely one of the better units that the Allies have for sure. The other troop transport is the Bullfrog. Now the Bullfrog is one of the coolest ways of troop transporting people because it's amphibious and it shoots them out of a cannon, but it's anti-air only. It's very good anti-air, but it's anti-air only. It's not anti-boat, and it doesn't shoot anything else. I'm probably going to put the Bullfrog here. That's mainly because the Bullfrog is a much more specialist unit compared to the Riptide. The Riptide goes on sea, has missiles, has the anti-air infantry gun, can transport, can only shoot ground, whereas the Bullfrog is anti-air only. It's very good at doing that, but it is anti-air only, and it's a transport with a cannon. So I mean, you can fire the units a long way away, but it's because it can only shoot up, it's only effective at that one thing, whereas being able to shoot stuff on the ground, there's more units on the ground and stuff. Being able to do both would be great, but in that instance, I think the Bullfrog is a weaker unit. I like building them. Like, I mean, to be fair, if you want a lot of anti-air, build the Flak Trooper over this, if you don't need troop transport, because Flak Trooper is a really solid choice of anti-air anyway. The reason I would put this here is because this probably hits harder. It's definitely better than this tank. Well, you know, I'm saying I think this is better. Maybe this doesn't go here. That's a good question. Do I think it's... Because I would personally probably build these, but the thing with this is it's fast. It's a fast unit, and it can go on sea, and you can build it from both the port and the factory. Maybe we'll come back to that one, because that one I'm not sure about. But it is a good unit. It's just not nearly as useful. I think the Riptide is so much more useful. Where is the sudden transport? I don't know where to place the sudden transport. Probably here as well. So this is a troop transport thing that can disguise itself as an enemy vehicle. This thing is really specific, but I've used it in certain missions to just run past the enemy, unload engineers, and just capture everything. I think it's cool for what it does because it can disguise itself, but it doesn't have a gun on it. And I think being able to have it shoot something, at least with the Bullfrog, it can shoot air, and it's good at doing that. And then the Riptide's good at taking out, like, or at least helping deal with boats and shooting infantry. So I think that's where the sudden transport goes. It's what it does it's good at, but because it's unarmed, it's not as effective as some of these other units. So yeah, that's probably where that one goes. Right, should we do some more boats? We could do some more boats, couldn't we? Yeah, let's do some more boats then. Let's look at so what we've got the Akula submarine. So this is where I put the Yar submarine. The Akula submarine is only good at taking out other boats. It's just very, very, very good at taking out other boats. It hits like an absolute truck. It has the dumbfire missiles as well, which do even more damage. It's definitely a specialist unit in that sense. But I don't think I would put it lower than B, because if you want something that is going to handle enemy ships, these things are pretty great. And I think while they're underwater, they can't be hit by certain units until they pop up, so you can get quite close and pop up. Obviously there are other units that deal with the submarines and stuff like that, but it's quite a tanky beast. As long as you don't blow, because your dumbfire rockets don't discriminate, so you can blow yourself up. If you've got like 4 of them, and they're shooting at like, they will wreck most things. Just be careful with the dumbfire things. I think they are a solid unit here. Probably that way around, for sure. Right, allies. What have we got? The assault destroyer. I don't know how I feel about the assault destroyer. It's a really cool concept. So it's a boat that can go on land, that has a big cannon, and its secondary ability is like a magnet. So if you're near other allied units and enemy units, their damage will go onto the assault destroyer. I think it's really good, but I haven't found like the most, because of the cost of it as well, and the best application for it. I think it is a good unit, but I just think you're either going to build tanks that are probably cheaper, or you're going to build maybe aircraft carriers or something. Like, as a boat, firing at other boats is decent, but using it on land and using the magnet thing, like, they're good. I just don't think it's as good as some of the other options. I like it as a unit. I love the concept of this massive destroyer being able to pump up on like a big like hovercraft thing and just come across the land. Because they do pack a punch, but the rate of fire is not great either. So I think the assault destroyer goes in C. I think there are just other choices that you might go for. Like, if you've got the money to build an aircraft carrier, I think that's a better unit. And they have a silly long range as well, the aircraft carrier. So, the equivalent of all this would be the Naginata. Is that what this boat's called? I'm kind of trying to remember. This thing is anti-ship, and then it's got this S-fire thing where it fires out a bunch of torpedoes. This is what's probably quite good against the Akula sub as well. Do I think it's better than the Akula sub? I think they're both fairly expensive units. They both have a similar role. They're just anti-boat. That's what they do. Their secondary ability is more missiles, but this one can sort of splash out in a direction. The Akula fires like a lot of very hard things. I think both these units are very good at what they're doing. And again, kind of like the Apollo Fire and the MiG, these two things, some of the best anti-ship units you're going to get. You're not going to use them for anything else, and on a mission where you need that, then they're pretty good for it. I think the Akula sub might just edge it out slightly because of like it's just a better unit in the sense for like damage output, but they both kind of fill a role. I think they're both pretty good at it. The sub is also under sea, so I think when it's submerged, it can't be attacked by certain things. So until it rises up, and I think this thing can hit it when it's underwater anyway. But I would just put the Akula sub ahead of it. But yeah, very good anti-ship units. Right, what have we got left in the boat stuff? We got anything else here? Not there. We've got the Dreadnought. Oh, the Tesla boat. Stingray. So the Stingray is kind of... It's one of those units that can go on land. When it pops out of land, it gets its little feet out and starts going around. It's got a cool ability where it can do a damage area like around it. Damage effect around it, where it zaps a bunch of things, which is cool. But it's quite weak. Tesla units are always super cool in these games. It does a decent amount of damage. It's good for what it is, but they die again quite easily, like a lot of things in this game. I think it's a good unit. It's more an all-round kind of unit. Like, it will destroy infantry. It's good for fighting boats, but it's not like the Akula sub or the Naginata, where they just are very good. It's probably again another B tier unit. I think it's there. I like it as a unit. I think it's actually really well designed, but it's good, but it's not incredible. I wouldn't put it into A tier like some of these units. I think it's a good choice though. It's a bit cheaper than the Akula sub, so if you needed a few more of these quickly, but because it can also fire out damage, splash damage, it will. I can't remember if it hurts its own units when it does that, but you can just fire all this like electricity into the sea, and you can do mass damage around things. I think it is cool, but yeah, it's more of a like an option. It's not always the option you want, but it's an option that's like, okay, I just need to get some of these boats. I like to build a lot of them, but they're very slow on ground anyway. They're much better in the sea, so they kind of like they fill this role of this extra sort of battleship or this fighting ship, but it's not particularly great at any one thing. But it kind of evens out. It's decent enough. All right, so we've got the capital ships left, right? Oh no, we've got the Sea Wing. Sea Wing is really interesting because when it's in the sea, it's an anti-air unit, and when it's in the air, it's an anti-ground unit. I I kind of have to pair these two up because the striker is an anti-air unit when it's on the ground and an anti-ground unit when it's in the air. So these two are very similar. I think the Sea-Wing is really cool. I think it's a bit on the weaker side, but the fact that it's a unit that can be, it's not. I guess the problem is that the striker, so they're like opposites. The striker can be anti-ground, sorry, anti-air when it's on the ground but can't go in the sea. And when it's in the air, now becomes... So they both, when they're both in the air, they both fire downwards and they can go over whatever. One's better against vehicles, one's better against like harassing and doing infantry. But they do the opposite when they're on the ground. They both shoot air, but one's in the sea and like that. I think overall, the Striker VX is better. I think the Sea-Wing is good. It's a good anti-air, because when it's in the sea, it pops up and fires. Submarines and stuff like that can deal with it when it's in there. And it's not the strongest thing. But the fact that it has these two different modes is very cool, like the Tengu. Mecha Tengu. Do I think it's as good as the Mecha Tengu? Because the Mecha Tengu becomes anti-air, anti-ground. I don't think it is. I think it's a really cool unit. I think it's better than the Stingray. I think that's probably right where it goes. Yeah, I think so. I think that's about right. I might have to revisit. As we're talking about these units that flip, the Striker to me is an easy... See, I'd probably put it in S tier. I don't know if it's that good though. They are quite weak. But as a harassment unit, very, very strong. And when they get to level 3, they do a ton of damage. Neither of these units can shoot up. Yeah, I do rate the Striker. I think it's a very, very, very powerful unit. If you've got these on mass, you can just put out so much damage. I think that's where I would put the Striker compared to the Sea-Wing. Again, they do a similar sort of role, but I think this is just because it's rocket based. It's just better against buildings and things like that. However, I really like the design of those units. I think they're very, very cool. Alright, now we've got the capital ships. Oh, the Hydrofoil. Okay, so the Hydrofoil is an anti-air boat with one of the best secondary abilities in the game, which is the weapon jammer. So if you've got a couple of these, even if you're not using them to shoot up, you can weapon jam stuff. And for that reason, easy A tier unit. If this was a ground unit, it'd be an S. No, easily, but the fact that it is very, very good at not only dealing with air units, if you don't need it for that, just build them for weapon jammer. Just have a couple of them on it, because if something flies over the top, like if you've got a sentry bomber or vindicator, you can weapon jam it, and other things can shoot it, and it can't drop its payload. It's crazy powerful. Easily one of the best secondary abilities in the game. Like nuts unit, honestly, like really, 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 really good. Probably one of the best anti-air units. And then anti-vehicle and stuff like that. It honestly just very, very, very good. Me likey. Right, the aircraft carrier. So the aircraft carrier has a very long range, bombards an area, and it also has a missile that turns power off, which is very good. I think the capital ships are good. The thing with them is they're very vulnerable if not protected, and they're very expensive. Out of the three of them, I think this one's the best one in terms of has a decent range and it also has that secondary ability that knocks power out. I will probably put them atop of B for the simple reason is that they are good, but they are expensive, and once they get surrounded, they can get overwhelmed and destroyed. Compared to the other two, the Dreadnought has a really long range and its secondary ability makes it fire faster while it takes damage, which is cool. You can definitely lay down a lot of damage with the Dreadnought. I don't think it's quite as good as the aircraft carrier, but I still think it's a very powerful unit. Anything that's like an artillery bombardment unit is usually pretty great. And then that leaves this thing, which I'm blanking on the name of it. This thing's got like 6 cannons. It's got a long range. The one thing this thing has over the other two is the fact that it's got ramming speed as its secondary ability. Smashes straight into other ships. Does a ton of damage. For that reason, it's probably slightly better because it can protect itself compared to the other two. I think this one, having the secondary abilities, would maybe eke it out, but the fact that the Japanese capital ship, yes, it's expensive, it's got a long range, but it can protect itself by ramming into and move. Even you can use ramming speed to just get out of the way, but the fact that that exists does allow it to deal with other ships. So, but I don't know if I would feel comfortable putting these in A, for the simple reason is they're quite vulnerable units. If you're not protecting them, like if they're protected, they're just an absolute nightmare to deal with. But if you catch one out in the wild, oh, they're dead. Because they don't move that fast. They're not very good at dealing with things at close range. They are literally bombardment ships. And that's what they're good for. They're very good at what they do. But they are, again, situational. Which is probably why these other units above it are just a little bit better in certain ways. Alright. Let's do the artillery units. So we've got the Athena cannon. We've got the... What's the... the V3. Or V4, whatever it is in this game, and then the Wave Force Artillery. All three of them are like the ground versions of the boats. So they all are designed to do long range things. The Athena cannon is like a target painter, and an ion cannon comes down. The V4, V5, V3, whichever one it is, I think it's V3, fires a rocket, standard sort of thing, has a fairly long range, just fires rockets over, and then the Wave Force charges up the cannon and blasts it. The Athena cannon, the secondary ability does a protective shield, makes the thing stationary, puts up a big shield, which is great. The V3 rocket, I can't actually remember what it does. I think it fires a different type of rocket that explodes to do more like damage against other things, which is pretty cool. And then the Wave Force has the ability to fire to quick charge the cannon and fire it. Out of the three of them, I think the Wave Force is probably the weakest. I don't know if I rate these units that particularly, like, because they are very powerful and they are super like crazy. Where would I put them? I think there. I think the Wave Force is okay. But these units are annoying to fight against, but again, you catch them out and they're just dead. They don't move fast. They can't put out a lot of damage. The rate of fire is very slow. So I think I put that one there. I think the V3 is marginally better. But I do think the Athena cannon is, out of the three of them, because its secondary ability allows you to put down a defensive shield, I would stick that in B. I think it is just better than the other two. Very, very powerful unit, but having that ability to quickly, boom, there's a shield up. Super useful. It is stationary when that happens, but I just think the problem with artillery in this game is a lot of units move quick, and they are good to have them on hand, but as soon as like they get caught out, that's it. And they're expensive, and if you spend the money on like a group, say you've got 4 of any of them, if they get caught out by air units bombing them or anything like that, it's a lot of money down the drain, so not ideal. Right, let's have a look at some other stuff. That's all the boats done, isn't it? So, Cryocopter's an interesting one. Cryocopter freezes stuff, which then allows other units to break it in one shot. So already that's pretty good. And then it's a secondary ability, shrinks things. So you like fire it and it's tiny, it does less damage and stuff like that. It's an interesting unit because it doesn't really do any damage, it just freezes stuff. I love the concept of it. Where would I put it? Is it in A tier? Would I build it for this stuff? Like, probably not. Which makes me think it would be in B. I would probably build this stuff over. I mean, it's got no defense of its own. Gets wrecked by anti-air. No, I'll probably put it there. I think it is a good unit. I think because it has the potential, if you've got a couple of them to, like, even if you're just freezing infantry, if you've got a ground army of infantry and a couple of these and they're freezing, you're just going to wipe through that army pretty quickly. And then you can shrink the vehicles down so that they get destroyed quite easily. It's definitely a more difficult unit to use and have in your army, but it's also a fun unit, and I think the concept of the ice stuff, it's not like it does the same effect as the Cryo Legionnaire, but Cryo Legionnaire is just flat out better. Except that this thing can't shoot up, and that thing, that can't shoot up, and that can't shoot up. So there is that. Alright, let's have a look. Vindicator. Good strike bomber. Like, if you want to do like quick attacks by having like bombers, getting 4 of them, you can take out most things. The thing with the Vindicator is more of a like hit and run bomber. It doesn't do a huge amount of damage compared to its counterparts, but it reloads fast. You can send it out quite a lot. Not the strongest thing, not that expensive. If you've got 8 of them, you can do some serious damage with them. But again, if the enemy knows that you're using bombers, you need to like get in. You need to like almost attack at different targets, or just like hit things. Like they'll take out power plants and barracks fairly easily, so you can use them for that. I don't know if I'd waste my time attacking stronger buildings with it though. But I do think the Vindicator bomber is good. I think it's one of the better units. It probably goes, because it's specifically just anti-ground, probably goes back there. It's not the best thing in the game, but I think it's a really solid choice. It's not that expensive, and it's fairly fast to reload and get back out. So definitely something to use. Then we've got the Sentry Bomber, which I do think is a tier above this. I think the Sentry Bomber is kind of nuts. You can parachute people down, and 4 of these will blow up most buildings in one go. So that probably goes there. Because you can parachute people out, and yes, they are expensive. You don't want to waste these, you don't want them to go in there, but you can carpet bomb an area, and it does a ton of damage, and you will blow up most things with 4 of them. I think it's just a stupidly powerful vehicle. And a really good choice of things if you've got a set of them. If you can protect them, even better. If you can keep them alive for as long as you can, honestly, crazy, 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 crazy. What else we got here? Oh, we got Kirov. Kirov's an interesting one because it's a continuous bomber, unlike the Sentry one, but it's super slow, and its secondary ability speeds it up and makes it a lot faster, but it takes damage. When it gets to level 3, it can then repair itself. I do think it's good, but I don't think it's A tier. Like, they are hard to deal with. If you've got this is where you need your Apollo fighters and MiGs, because these things have a lot of health, so you need to like get on top of them and take them down. If someone sends like 5 or 6 of these to your base, you need to like get a lot of anti-air, and this is where the Javelin's lock-on comes in useful, because it's so slow moving unless they suddenly zip across and bomb you. I think it's a really, really solid unit. I think it goes top of B. I don't think I can quite put it into A. I don't think it's up there yet. But it's a very, very, very difficult thing to deal with. They are fun, though, as well. Just send them over and bomb the crap out of it. Then we've got the Twin Blade. Twin Blade, to me, S tier unit. Yeah, actually, no, I probably would put it above the Cryo-Legionnaire. This thing is just solid. It can troop transport. You can take vehicles on a hook. It's anti-infantry, and it has a reloading a bunch of missiles. It's definitely slightly above the Striker. But if I'm playing the Soviets, especially in the campaign and stuff, this is just a great unit to amass and just fly over. Because you can run in, fire a ton of the missiles, run out, deal with infantry very easily. So even anti-air, like, I do think it's on the weaker side. But I think it's one of the most versatile units in the game. Yes, it can't shoot up, so you do have to be careful if someone sends over MiGs and Apollo fighters. But it does good against vehicles, good against infantry, good against buildings. Like, they just wreck. They are a really good unit. If you get it, like I said, most of these units in like numbers of 10, they're very powerful. They are crazy. They're almost overkill with them, and I think they are just one of the best units in the game. And it's probably one of the best units the Soviets have. So, what have we got left here? Steel Ronin I'm not sure about, because I have used them, but I think they're okay. I don't know if I would put them, like, they're good because they're fairly quick. They have the shockwave attack, so they can like take out damage, and they're good like at dealing with stuff. But I don't know if I personally rate them that much. If we look at what's in, I don't think it's not a B tier unit. I don't think it's D. I don't know that bad. In C, like I probably would build it over. Will I build it over some of this stuff? Over the would I build it over the tanks? That's the question. Probably not. I'd probably build tsunami units because they're cheaper than Steel Ronin. I think I'm going to move some of this stuff around when we finish, but I think he goes there. I think it's a good unit in the sense like it's fun to have and fun to use and like it's cool, but I just don't know if I rate it that much. I think it dies a bit too easily. But I do think having a mixture of them being, because they are quite quick, just to run in and strike stuff with their Naginatas is pretty cool. So, but yeah, I just don't. I think the tsunami just edges it out just based on the fact that they're cheaper and you can get more of them. You can lay down a lot more hurt, even though I don't think these are particularly great either. Reaper, I think this thing is called. This is a weird unit. So it's got like, I don't know if it just fires grenades and has a cannon, but basically it just launches grenades, explosive grenades and stuff. And then when you jump, its legs break and it becomes a defensive turret. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's amazing. It's one of those weird units that they got in Uprising. I think it goes here. Like, it does, like, in numbers they're pretty good, but they're also really weak. So I don't know. Yeah, I think that's about right for now. I don't know if it's much better. That might be worse than that, but I think it's just the compared to the sickle, which can jump and not be like completely wrecked. I just think this thing is like, it's anti-vehicle stuff, but there's just other things to build that are better, like hammer tanks and stuff like that. It might be able to attack air, which might be why it should be better than this, but I don't know if it's great. Tesla tank's a weird one. I'm not going to rate this because I think you get it in the campaign only. I don't remember getting this in the... Maybe you get it in the challenge mode as well, but cool unit, but it's not something you build often. Same with the Executioner thing. We're not going to rate that because it's not a unit you get to be able to build. Okay, now we're getting some crazy terror. Mirage tank. Easy S tier. One of the best tanks, one of the best things in the game. In fact, that way around. It's basically a Prism tank and a Mirage tank from the previous game put into one. Has a really high powered attack. Is invisible when stationary and can also shield a big army around it as well. So that you have to be careful. You don't know what's in there. Just a solid choice. Yeah, so not the strongest thing in terms of health. But I don't know if there's a better tank in the game, really. But yeah, phenomenal unit. What's this? I'm not even sure what this is. Is that the MCV? Yeah. Cool. I've got the Sputniks here as well because that acts like that, but yeah, cool. Alright, let's see what I've got here. King Oni. Good unit. Good, solid unit. Very good at, like, can run a bunch of things over, can run tanks over, can run over infantry, can run into buildings. Has a laser attack, so it's good against buildings and vehicles. Can't shoot up. Has a decent amount of health as well. Moves fairly quickly for what it is. Really, really good tank. It is expensive, but no, I think it's A tier actually. Thinking about it. Do I put it over these? Like, yes. Yeah, I think that looks right to me because it's really good. It's a really good unit. Definitely worth using. Does a ton of damage. So for that reason alone, I think it's pretty good there. The Giga Fortress is one of those ones where it costs a lot of money to build. It's really slow. It does do a ridiculous amount of damage, and it can be in 2 different modes. But I don't know if it's like one of those. It's kind of a bit of a joke unit in the sense that, like, oh, he's got one. If you're getting to that point and you're building one of those, that is now going to become the absolute magnet of damage. So if it's on the sea, you're going to get a bunch of stuff to deal with it. If you're going to get in the air, you're going to get a bunch of stuff to deal with it. It is a very powerful unit. It does a stupid amount of damage. But I don't know if it's truly like the thing that you would want to build. I'm going to put it in. I'm just going to put it in B for now. I'll probably reorder some of this at the end, but I think it's crazy good. But honestly, I would rather build mass other units with Rising Sun. All right, grind attack. Grind attack's kind of cool. I don't know if it's like amazing. I love it as a concept. The fact you just run into things and grind them up. I think this is another B tier unit. I like it. It's amphibious. You can take stuff out in the water. You can take out boats. It basically is good against everything that isn't air, and it destroys vehicles really, buildings very quickly. Where would I put this? Because it's a weirdly expensive unit as well. That seems about right. I feel like B. There's like most of these units are in B and C. Apocalypse tank, another A tier unit. The only thing with the Apocalypse tank, There, I think. The only thing with the Apocalypse tank is it's very slow. So it's got 2 massive guns, does a ton of damage, has a huge health pool, and has a grinder on the front, so it can latch onto units and pull them to the grinder. I think that's really, really good. But the thing compared to a lot of this other stuff is this thing is very slow. And again, becomes, if you've got a couple of Apocalypse tanks, they are pretty much there to just absorb damage. They are going to become the magnets for damage. So if you are going to build them and you want them to survive, you need to like kind of protect them a little bit, but they are slow. Cool though. Very, very, very cool, but slow. Alright, so the last 3 allied units. Pacifier, I think it's SCV, Pacifier, whatever it is. Ridiculous unit. Unbelievably ridiculous unit. I might even go so far to say probably the best unit in the game. Because it's amphibious. It has anti-infantry guns that absolutely shred. It can't attack air, but it's got the longest range in the game. When these things hit level 3, you're firing like off screen at stuff. Like, they're ridiculous. When they're deployed, they are defenseless. You need to protect them. But truly, like, an insane range, easily the best artillery unit in the game. They're just nuts. They are broken. They are not balanced. They are kind of just super crazy like that. Yeah, I really rate them. I think they are ridiculously good. Yeah, worth getting. Even if you use them defensively or aggressively, they are just very good at bombard. They will wipe out bases in seconds. Like, if you've got 5 of them, they're pretty much one-shot volley any building. And if you fire into infantry, they're all dead. Fire into vehicles, they're pretty much all dead. So, very not stupidly expensive, but they are expensive units. This thing, the Harbinger gunship. I love the concept of this thing, but it costs $3,600 in game, making it one of the most expensive units in the game. And yes, it's a cool harassment unit where it bombards an area, does a ton of damage, switch to a gun that deals with infantry. But I don't, a lot of the time it's like, why would I build this over getting sentry bombers or vindicators, in the sense that like I can get, for something much cheaper, I can get sentry bombers that I just think are nuts. I think this is a good unit. I think it is overpriced, but I also understand why it's overpriced, because it just circles the enemy's base or wherever area it is and just fires and stuff. It does a lot of damage. It's probably top of B, but the caveat is that it's stupidly expensive. I don't know if it's something I would buy a lot in game. And that leaves us with this future tank robot thing that does like splash damage and then has like a laser thing. It's a cool unit, but again, it's really expensive. So for that reason, I'm going to plonk it there for a minute. And now we're just going to quickly go over, because everything that's left in the things that aren't placed, so MCVs, prospectors, harvesters, stuff like that, and then the big old boy and the Tesla tank. So I'm saying here, the Pacifier, the Twin Blade, the Mirage tank, and the Cry Legionnaire are the best things in the game. Looking at anything in A, would I move anything from A up or down? Or would I take anything out of S? No, I think those 4 units are definitely some of the best in the game. I'm sure someone's gonna like. Please remember, this is just for fun. I've never played the game competitively. This is just what I think based on what these units do. Hydrofoil, easy A tier. I could see that being S. Same with the Striker. Sentry Bomber is nuts. Anything that just does a stupid amount of damage. Desolator, Tesla guys. I'm pretty happy with this. B tier, Harbinger, Kirov, we've got the boats, we've got the heroes. You know, I think Rocket Maiden might be an A tier unit. You know, looking at this, I think that probably goes there. Archer Maiden probably needs to be higher. And then the bike. I almost think the Tengu should be... the Tengu's a weird one because it has the 2 flight modes versus the aircraft. I'm almost wondering. So these boats here, like the capital ships, are good, but these ones here are good at dealing with them. Should they be closer? I think the future tank's better than that. I think the future tank's better than that as well. Just having a look. Having a look in C tier. I think the spy needs to go down. The spy needs to go there. Same with the shinobi. Like, they're good, but these guys, all this stuff's better. This needs to come down. This needs to come down. This stuff, yeah. Yeah. I think we move the inventory up because I think they're just, for the price point for what they do, these guys are better. Yeah. Alright, I think top of C needs to be the inventory. I think that looks better because these are all three of these units are cheap. These two, the flak and the javelin, dish out a silly amount of damage to vehicles and buildings, and same with the tank buster actually. And then the peacekeeper is just better. I mean, the peacekeeper's probably here, to be honest. Even though it's good against all of them. In C, we got D. So we got the terror drone, yeah, the Yari mini sub, the dolphin. I've forgotten these guys, the conscripts, the dragonfly. That looks about right. Nah, actually thinking about it, that way around. Though I think the Athena cannon, well, this is it, innit? The sickle. Sickle is just a really good unit for what it is. I think it needs to go up. I think it needs to go here. Move up a few places. The Athena cannon is definitely better than those two. Even though it is... Yeah, no, I think I feel better about that. So, let's go from top to bottom. The animals and the dragonfly, yep, absolutely worst units in the game. Conscript, this guy, this, and this. Yep, that feels right. The engineers, they have their abilities. They can be quite good, but they're engineers at the end of the day, so they're like more situational. The spy and the shinobi can be good, but I'd rather be spending my money on other things. Ronin can be good, but I don't know. I don't rate them that highly. Same with this thing. It's all right. Tsunami tank is okay, but it's not amazing. Though, having said that, I would probably put the tsunami tank above these two because this is just a transport. They can get a change thing. This is a good anti-air, but it's not as good as the Riptide. Assault Destroyer is okay, and then we have the two like artillery units here. They're decent. Peacekeeper, and then all three of the anti-tank stuff. Giga Fortress, I'm not even going to really give that any more thought. It's just an expensive unit. It does a lot of damage, but I just think you want to spend your money elsewhere. Same with the tank. This little fella here is good, but he's not amazing. Cryocopter's a bit like an odd unit. Athena cannon, sickle. I've got some of the boats. Grinder tank's a weird one, but I do think it's sort of about there. Vindicator bomber is probably slightly worse than the Tengu and the anti-air dudes. Bike, Archmage, and then the heroes, then the capital ships, Kirov, and then the Harbinger. And then in A, we've got the Apocalypse tank, which I think that's right, just based on the price of it and how slow it is versus these other units. Because if you've got, you're not going to use Riptides against it anyway. And if you're using hammer tanks or you're using guardian tanks, guardians especially can just pummel the crap out of it while it's being target painted, and then the hammer tanks can just siphon away its weaponry. Multigun IFE is just a versatile unit. Rocket Angel definitely deserves to be an A. King Oni, very, very good. Tesla, do you know what? I'm almost tempted to put Tesla in S tier. In fact, these four units, the Hydrofoil, the Striker, the Sentry Bomber, Desolator, and the Tesla could easily be in S tier. This just because its secondary ability is so good. This is just a really good unit. I think this is better though, so maybe that stays there. This is expensive. These are just nuts. Do they go into S tier? With the amount of damage and stuff we put out, like no infantry is really going to stand against these guys. No, we're gonna leave it. I think that's about right for me. I love Red Alert 3. I love both the expansion and the base game. I love what they do. Awesome games. This is my own personal tier list. I'm probably off base. I don't really care. It was fun putting this together. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as well. It's been a long one. But yeah, it's going to do it for me today. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this, then hit the like button. Similarly, if you want to see more content like this and other things, hit the subscribe button. And until next video, I will see you then.